What up, guys? Jay with the Douchebag Brigade. It's been some time. Just want to put out a video for you guys. I know that something that's really come to light a lot is kind of for people, especially that are new to the whole Shin Megami Tensei thing, to kind of figure out what is and isn't a Shin Megami Tensei game. Now, I've done its Persona Shin Megami Tensei back in the day, and you can find that in my video list. But overall, it's kind of something that I think kind of confuses people that are new to the series. So what is and isn't a Shin Megami Tensei game? Let's just start with that now. So anything under the Shin Megami Tensei moniker would lead you to believe that it's a Shin Megami Tensei game, and that includes Persona 3 and 4. Prior to Golden, they kept that name in there. And this would be the same thing for Devil Saga, Digital Devil Saga, the Raido Kuzunoa games. Pretty much anything you played in America would have Shin Megami Tensei in it. And the reasoning behind that is because there wasn't a lot of popularity and fame for the games back when they were new to the US. Because you have to remember, prior to this, the Super Nintendo game or Super Famicom games, all the original games in the mainline series, the spin-offs, all that stuff really stayed in Japan. And so we didn't really have an opportunity to experience Shin Megami Tensei outside of, I believe, some of the last Bible games were in English. But before that, and those were on Game Boy Color, and so I don't think we had much of an opportunity to really learn too much about the Shin Megami Tensei opportunities. So when they finally did release games here in the West, I think a strong way to get familiarity was to put Shin Megami Tensei in it, because Nocturne had some success here in the US, and by continuing that title, people would understand that it's all in the same, overarching concept. Now, where I think there was some confusion and maybe loss of understanding is that all of these games are spin-offs of the original Megami Tensei, which was, had two of its own entries before becoming Shin Megami Tensei. And actually, there was a Megami Tensei game that was not an RPG by the concept of what we see. It was more like a gauntlet-type game. And that was the first entry into all of that. But I would say that as a whole, Shin Megami Tensei really had more fame than Megami Tensei, at least here, obviously in the West. Shin Megami Tensei as a whole, let's just say that spin-offs, when you think of a spin-off, I mean, essentially a spin-off is still a part of its wholes. So, just to give an example, let's say that we had a show, something like a Marvel show. Let's just say, I'm trying to think of Marvel stuff, like Daredevil. In Daredevil, you have these moments where you'll see a character like Luke Cage or Jessica Jones. And so those characters, when they get their own shows, it's a spin-off. Still all comes under the Marvel headpiece, but it's a spin-off overall. And I would say that when putting this into current mainframe, when you get a spin-off of a game that comes under the same overarching system, it's part of that series. So when you think about it, anything that is Majin Tensei, anything that is Last Bible, anything that's Digital Devil Saga, anything that is Raido Kuzunoa, anything that's Persona-based, those are all spin-offs of an overarching game. And the reason I bring this up is it seems like a lot of people are not sure that Persona has anything to do with Shin Megami Tensei. And that's probably because the game that they've played as of right now is Persona 5, or Persona 5R, or Persona 5 I've danced the whole night through, or whatever the title is. When you play that, it leads you to believe it's its own series. And Persona has its own spin-offs. It does not mean that it's not a part of the overarching game that it derives from. Think about this. The gameplay, for the most part, is its own deviation of the press turn system. That in itself should give you a hint that, boy, this must come from Shin Megami Tensei. The personas are essentially demons from past Shin Megami Tensei games. That, again, should give you the idea that this is a Shin Megami Tensei game. Jack Frost is in the game, which is literally the mascot for Shin Megami Tensei. You would think that that would then give away the idea that this is all in the same series overarching system. And I did a video before where you could kind of look at things like Shin Megami Tensei is what happens with the apocalypse and things going to hell and all that stuff. And you can look at Persona kind of as like, hey, we managed to keep all this stuff from happening. So this is a what-if timeline, kind of as what Persona was founded off of, Shin Megami Tensei If, which was a sub-series in itself. It's almost as if they decided to go with a sub-series to give a more happy in tone piece. Think about this. Shin Megami Tensei If is it was the first game, I believe, to take place in a high school. From there, Persona and the rest were all high schools. And they all come with endings that end up having you save the world or save everything before any kind of apocalyptic situation could occur. And I don't want to dive into this for too long because I've already made a video about that, which you can check out in my videos. But when you think about it, there's no reason to think that a sub-series based on an original series that takes elements from everything ranging from the enemies and demons to the story, in a sense, it's all comprised of similar pieces of one overarching system. So for people that think Persona is its own thing, I would have to say that you are incorrect and probably new to the Shin Megami Tensei overarching system. Keep in mind that Shin Megami Tensei as a whole may not have had the popularity here in the West that Persona has had, but it still has similar value points and similar overarching explanations. One thing I noticed that must confuse a lot of people is, where does Digital Devil Saga fall into play here? Raida Kuzunoa. You have to keep in mind that all of these spin-offs, as far as we can tell, could take place in their own dimension or their own parallel universe. There's not necessarily something combining or connecting these games together. So, for instance, Last Bible, I'm sure you could say, is the Middle Ages or fantasy version, maybe it's the 14th century, 13th century, before Shin Megami Tensei happens. Sure, you could say that. Just like you could say that Raida Kuzunoa is, that's probably the Roaring 20s over in Japan. So you could easily say that these games have some level of connection. In the same subset, Majin Tensei obviously takes the same time period as Shin Megami Tensei. So I don't know about that one. That's kind of up for grabs if they could actually connect. The same thing goes to Megami Tensei, as all these games seem to take place within a relatively similar timeline. Could you say that they're all within a connecting, overarching piece? Probably not. But could you say that this game, actually could be in separate dimensions, or what ifs, in a sense? Like, what if one thing went different in this situation, or what if one thing went different in that situation that caused the apocalyptic events? A different kind of evil or a different kind of subset of factors caused these things? I mean, you start getting into like a multiverse theory, in a sense. But really, it's more of a choices system. It's almost as if, what if this choice was made by this character, but then this choice was made by this guy who was unrelated to the original game? This could have happened. So the way I look at it, these games are all obviously related, and they're all Shin Megami Tensei games, or Megami Tensei games. They just have different timelines, different situations, and different effects of what had happened or what had caused these things to happen. Now, of course, Raida Kuzunoa being mixed in with the Demi-Fiend, you're obviously going to have to say that these somehow correlate. Again, and that works with Digital Devil Saga too. Somehow, if you're able to fight Demi-Fiend in a game, then he must be a part of those subsections and those games. So, when you think about it, all of the PlayStation 2 games, in a sense, they all have to correlate. Now, Persona 3, on the other hand, and Persona 4, they have had nothing to do with Shin Megami Tensei when it comes to storyline or being interwoven. But again, if you take into consideration, these are all spin-offs of a what-if spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, starting with Shin Megami Tensei If, then you can see how these are a different representation of things that occurred. Essentially, Shin Megami Tensei If paved the way for the Shin Megami Tensei series to go in a different direction. And they paved the way for Persona to be a more happy, there is a good ending. I don't mean like the good versus the bad, the true ending. I mean, they put in a situation where it was like, hey, look, we did save the world. We did keep bad things from happening. It put a nice little happy ending spin on everything. There you go, happy ending. So that's really all I wanted to say. I think maybe hopefully that'll clear up some of the confusion that all of these games, whether it be from a demon standpoint or an overarching battle system standpoint, these games correlate in every way. And yes, every single one of these games is a Shin Megami Tensei or Megami Tensei game. Anyway, this is Jay with the Douchebag Brigade, and I'm out.